Your baby is staring at a blank wall again. Not at you. Not at the colorful mobile spinning above them. A blank, empty wall. And something about it makes you feel like you're missing something, or like something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. In fact, what's happening inside that tiny skull right now is one of the most extraordinary things the human brain will ever do. And once you understand it, once you really see what your baby is actually doing in those quiet, still moments, you will never look at your child the same way again. Here's the thing. Most parenting books never quite say clearly enough. Your newborn's brain is not a finished product that arrived ready to run. It's a construction site operating at a pace that will never happen again in your child's entire life. At birth, a baby's brain contains roughly 100 billion neurons, essentially the full adult count. But those neurons are barely connected to each other. What the brain is doing in those first weeks and months is building the wiring. Synapses, the connections between neurons, are forming at a rate of about 1 million per second in the early months of life. 1 million per second, let that land. Now here's where the blank wall comes in. The visual system is one of the first major systems the brain begins to wire up after birth. But a newborn's eyes are not like yours. At birth, a baby can only focus clearly on objects roughly 8 to 12 inches away, the distance from your breast or bottle to your face. Everything beyond that is blurry, shifting, overwhelming. A blank wall, especially one with a subtle shadow, a faint texture, or a contrast edge where the wall meets the ceiling, is actually the perfect visual input for a brain that is just beginning to learn how to see. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's exactly the right level of stimulation for a visual cortex that is, quite literally, still under construction. When your baby locks onto that wall, they are not zoning out. They are calibrating. They are teaching their visual system what edges look like, how light works, how to hold focus. This is the brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. And the fact that your baby can do it without any help from you, that's not a sign something is wrong. That's a sign the system is working. Be honest with yourself. Did you ever think your baby staring into space was a red flag? Drop a 1 in the comments if yes, a 2 if you just thought it was cute. There's a detail that developmental researchers have observed for decades that most parents never hear about. Newborns are disproportionately drawn to high contrast edges, corners, and boundaries. Not patterns, not faces, edges. The reason goes back to how the visual cortex processes information. The cells in the retina that are most active at birth are those tuned to luminance contrast, the difference between light and dark. A blank wall isn't actually blank to a newborn. The corner where the wall meets the ceiling is a bold, high contrast line. A shadow thrown by a door frame is a dramatic edge. The faint texture of painted plaster catches light in a dozen subtle ways. Your baby is essentially reading the room in the only visual language their brain currently speaks. What's fascinating is that this preference for edges is not random. Experienced developmental optometrists and pediatric vision researchers have noted for years that the visual system uses edges to begin building what's called spatial frequency processing, the brain's ability to distinguish fine detail from coarse shapes. A baby who stares at edges is a baby whose visual cortex is laying the groundwork for eventually reading a face, tracking a moving object, and one day reading words on a page. The blank wall isn't empty. to your baby, it's a masterclass. And here's the part that should make you exhale. This behavior typically peaks around 2 to 6 weeks of age and then naturally shifts. As the visual cortex matures, babies begin preferring more complex stimuli, patterns, faces, movement. If your 4-week-old is staring at walls, that's developmentally right on schedule. If your 4-month-old is doing it exclusively and showing no interest in faces or movement, that's worth mentioning to your pediatrician. But at 4 weeks, you're watching a brain do its job. If this is already shifting how you see those quiet moments with your baby, you know what to do. That like button is right there, and it genuinely helps this kind of content reach parents who need it. Because what I'm about to get into next, it's the part that changes how you think about your own role in those wall-staring moments. And it's not what most people expect. Here's the part that surprises most parents. You don't need to interrupt the wall staring, but your presence during it is doing something invisible and profound. Developmental psychology has a term called co-regulation. It describes how a calm, present caregiver acts as an external nervous system for an infant who has not yet developed the neurological equipment to regulate their own internal states. When you sit quietly near your baby while they stare at the wall, not talking, not stimulating, just being there, your calm breathing, your steady heartbeat if they're on your chest, your regulated nervous system, is actively helping their nervous system stay regulated too. The wall-staring moments are often the baby's first experience of what researchers call quiet alert state, one of the 6 newborn behavioral states. Quiet alert is the state in which the baby is most receptive to learning. Heart rate is stable, body is still, eyes are open and focused. The brain is taking in information at maximum efficiency. What experienced pediatric nurses and neonatal care specialists have observed for generations, and what developmental science has since built a framework around, is that babies in quiet alert state benefit enormously from a calm, low stimulation environment. Loud voices, sudden movement, bright lights, these pull the baby out of quiet alert and into a more aroused or distressed state. The wall is helping them stay in the zone. You hovering quietly nearby is helping them stay there too. So the next time your baby stares at the wall, try this. Don't redirect them. Don't shake the rattle. Just sit close. Breathe slowly. Watch what they're watching. You are not being passive. You are co-regulating a developing nervous system. That is one of the most important things a parent can do. Around 6 to 8 weeks, something shifts. The blank wall starts to lose its grip, and what replaces it is one of the most moving milestones in early parenting. Your baby begins to prefer your face above almost everything else in their environment. This is not a coincidence. It's the payoff of all that early visual calibration. The brain has spent weeks learning edges, contrast, and spatial structure. Now it has enough processing power to tackle the most complex visual object in the human environment, a human face. The social smile, that first real intentional smile directed at you, typically emerges between 6 and 12 weeks. And developmental researchers have documented that it arrives precisely as the visual cortex reaches the resolution needed to process facial features at conversational distance. The blank wall was the training ground. You are the graduation ceremony. If you've made it this far, you're the kind of parent who actually wants to understand their child, not just get through the day. That matters more than you know. Subscribe so you don't miss what we put out next, because this is exactly the kind of depth we bring every week. Now, what should you watch for if the wall staring lingers longer than expected? Pediatric developmental guidelines generally suggest that by 3 to 4 months, a baby should be showing clear preference for faces, tracking moving objects with their eyes, and making eye contact with caregivers. If those milestones aren't emerging, a conversation with your pediatrician is the right move, not because something is definitely wrong, but because early eyes on any developmental question are always better than late ones. The wall staring will end. And when it does, you'll probably miss it a little, because now you know what it meant. That blank wall was never empty. It was the first classroom your child ever walked into, and you were there for it. Thanks for watching. The end screen has more videos in the same world. Pick whichever video on the end screen calls to you. There's more here for curious parents.